here is my attempt to deal with the relationship between direct realism and sense data, presented in the 40 Wittgenstein Symposium. This is a prayer work for the book Philosophical Semantics to be yet published. My intention is only to expose the way I was able to understand direct realism, showing why I believe that we can reconcile it with the admission of sense data. And my proposal is that everything that is really experienced in normal perception has some kind of Janus face. Janus was a god with two faces representing duplicity. Well, there is a problem here, but what I will present is what we can take from our intuitions, ordinary linguistic intuitions. In other words, we have sensory perceptual experience of the outside world in two related ways. As the psychological experience of cognitively dependent internally given sensory contents, often called sense data, and B, as the proper physically understood cognitively independent externally given perceived contents, that is, external things, objects, properties, facts. Psychological experience A gives us what we may call sensory impressions, also called sense data, sensations, sense, quali, phenomena. It seems beyond doubt that these sense data are always present in perceptual experience. I believe that the computational reconstruction of mental images by scanning the occipital cortex, first made at the University of Berkeley, and can be understood as giving us sufficient evidence for the existence of sense data. Here are some photos of sense data. Here are the objects, and here are the reconstructed images. You can see reconstructed moving images of your brain images. Images, I think, I guess, I bet, of your sense data. More examples of sense data reconstructed by means of fMRI. Until now, they have scanned blurred human faces or blurred animals moving when you see them, so that you can see what your brain sees and others can see it too. Looking at the images, one could say they are making photos of sense data, even movies showing their changes, what demonstrates empirically their existence. One could try to deny this conclusion, saying that the true neuronal patterns do not have these reconstructed forms, but we could reply, are the things photographed similar to the photos, or this is so said only because we, with our eyes, see both as similar. I and other persons see similar things. Well, coming back to our question, considering tactic experience, I try to elaborate an example from Searle, from his excellent book of 2015. Suppose I touch a hot stove with my hand. I can say I have a sensation of heat. This sensory impression is the psychological content of experience, in my view, made up of sense data. This is A. And I can say that I have perceived that the stove as such is hot. I have access to both data, the sensory impressions and what I perceive. I have perceived the stove as such as hot. This is the correct perceived content of the externally given physical entity, B. So you can phenomenologically understand that there must be these two phases of experience. As Searle noted, the essential point to notice in examples like this is that in the normal case we cannot phenomenally distinguish experience A from experience B. To me it seems that A and B are qualitatively identical, at least to a sufficient extent, not numerically, but maybe it is numerically, but this would be a problem. Anyway, one can let this question for another time. In a similar way, I can say, bracketing, I feel that I'm holding a tennis ball in my hand, and so the bracketing shows that I'm intending the sensory content, what I feel. But I have also one B. I'm holding a tennis ball in my hand, intending the observed content. Also, the phenomenal experience is the same. What is phenomenally given is the same. And now, from auditory experience, I can say 2A, I brackets have the auditory impression that I hear thunder, intending sensory content. 2B, I hear thunder outside there, intending the perceptual content. And a third example from visual experience now, I can also say 3A brackets, I have the visual impression that I am seeing a fishing boat entering the mouth of Pirangi River. This is a description of the sensory content phenomenally given. 3B, I am seeing a fishing boat entering the mouth of Pirangi River. This is the perceived content, but phenomenally what is described is the same. And this is the two-faced character of experience. As you can see, the phenomenal description outside of the brackets are the same, but in the A cases I speak of sensory contents occurring in my head, sense data, while in the B cases I intend to speak of independent factual contents pre-existing in the external world. The real thing in B is epistemically dependent on sense data in A, since without A I couldn't perceive B. On the other hand, sense data in A are ontologically dependent on B, which causes A. B is the cause of A. I can illustrate how harmless the above duplicity is by comparing it with the kind of doubling in our interpretation of objects we see in a mirror. What we see in a mirror, a vase of flowers, can be interpreted as a simple image, for instance, the image of a vase of flowers on a table, but also as B, the vase with flowers in itself that I am seeing through the mirror. For instance, I can point to an object I see in a mirror, and you can ask me if I am pointing to the reflected image of the vase of flowers or to the real vase of flowers. That they belong to different domains is made clear by some known internal differences. The image isn't considered real because it has a changeable size. We cannot touch or smell it. The real vase of flowers, on the other hand, has an unchangeable size, can be touched, smelled, directly seen from all sides, manipulated, broken, and so on. However, by looking at the mirror, we would not be able to see the vase on the table without the help of the image, and the elements and isomorphic relations between both will sufficiently coincide. As in the cases A and B, B, is epistemically dependent on A, because without the image A, you couldn't see B, Alternatively, A, is ontologically, causally dependent on B, This is why when you pay attention to an object in a mirror, you see it as perceptually dependent on its image, but when you pay attention to the image, you see it as causally dependent on the real object. You can easily say that you see the reality through the image, but you will never say that you cannot see the vase only because what you really see is only its image. Moreover, you can also say that you are seeing the real vase directly through its image, insofar as you compare it with the same vase seen in a photo or in a picture. You can see either the real vase or its image, but not both together. And the mirror image also shows that our experience is perspectival. What we see are typically facets, aspects of a whole, like the whole vase or the whole ship, that we infer as existing and for which we also use the verb see or being aware. The limit of the analogy is that we are normally unaware of our sense data, but we can be always aware of the mirror image. From a descriptive point of view, this is how we go from the mind-dependent to a mind-independent understanding of what is given to us as phenomena or sensations or sense data. We can say we see or observe an external factual content directly through its phenomenal experience as involving a purely sensory content constituted of sense data, which is internal. There are, however, two traditional arguments designed to show that the kind of direct realism suggested above must be wrong, and it is advisable to answer them before finishing. They are the famous traditional argument of illusion and the argument of science. I begin with the famous argument of illusion. It usually concerns cases of perceptual illusions, in which what we think we perceive is not what we should perceive, particularly in the extreme case of hallucinations, in which we only imagine we perceive something. The main goal of the argument of illusion is the replacement of direct realism by indirect realism, according to which we perceive the objectively real world indirectly through the veil of sensations, the veil of sense data, constituted by sensory perceptions. There is nowadays an extensive philosophical literature aiming to show that the argument of illusion is fallacious, and we directly perceive things around us as they really are. As I said, in my understanding of direct realism, I don't wish to deny that there are sensory impressions or sense data, and I do not even wish to deny that we perceive the world through a veil of sensations or sense data, since by accepting A, I accepted these conclusions. What I reject is the claim that these things make our perceptions indirect. For, as you know, we never say we perceive our sensations. What we might say is that we perceive the world directly through our sensations or sensory impressions. This suggests that just because we can show that we perceive the external world through a veil of sensations doesn't make our perception of the external world indirect, and it is a category mistake to defend this view. Put simply, the central problem with the argument of illusion is that it is based on a misunderstanding of the semantics of our concept of directicity applied to the case. For the word direct, as Austin said, uses trousers. It can, in different circumstances, use different trousers. To see this, consider the following two sentence pairs. 1. The bullet struck the victim directly, after piercing the window glass. 2. The bullet struck the victim indirectly, after ricocheting off a wall. This example shows that what makes some relations direct is not necessarily the fact that you cannot find intermediaries between the relata. They very often exist, and there can be more than just one. Indirectness is an essentially conventional distinction that depends on the relevance of the intermediaries for what we intend to consider. In the case of perception, conventions allow us to say that we perceive things around us directly, even if by means of a causal process involving a number of intermediaries. And there is nothing wrong in accepting the view that we perceive things directly by means of sense data or show a veil of sensations, just as much as there is nothing wrong in saying that the victim was struck directly by a bullet, so it first had to go through window glass. The argument of illusion. Having in mind what I just said, I will consider only two well-known examples of the argument of illusion, showing where they fail to prove that perceptual experience is indirect. Example 1. If I press the side of my right eye with my right finger, I have the impression that things in front of me move in the opposite direction. Consequently, what I see directly are only images of things, that is, sensory impressions, sense data, and not things as they are in themselves. The answer that you can give against this argument of illusion is that even if I know by pressing my eye that I see things moving through my visual field, this does not mean that I am not seeing the things directly. In fact, I can even say I see external things directly and precisely as they are, although they seem to be moving. I see the external things directly and as they are, though they seem to be moving. Example 2. Suppose she has drunk too much and she is a case of alcoholic hallucinosis, and she has people who has this syndrome have a perfect hallucination of a white horse. What she sees is not a real white horse, but only a hallucinatory image. Since this image made of sense data isn't different from what she sees when she sees a real white horse, the primary object of perception must be her sensory impressions or sense data. This is what the argument of illusion says. Answer. As Searle has noted, in the case of a hallucination, it is simply wrong to say that the person sees or is aware of the content of her hallucination. She only believes to be aware of it, when in fact there is nothing there to be seen. Verbs like seeing and perceiving or being aware of are primarily related to the factual, objective content and not to a merely sensory content. It seems now clear that even if it is through sensory content that we have a perception of things, this does not make our realism indirect. Summarizing, we perceive things directly, even under misleading conditions like those of delusions, which justifies the direct realism view of whatever is given in perception. And this does not mean that there can't be any relevant veil of sensory impressions or sense data in between. This justifies my psychological interpretation, A, of a given content as based merely on sensory data, without forcing me to reject interpretation B. Argument of science. A word about the argument of science. According to this argument, perceptual experience depends on the stimulation of distal neuronal cells that in the end lead to the stimulation of cortical regions in the brain. Thus, our experience is in fact the experience of something occurring in our brain, which is nothing but the experience of sensory impressions or sense data. Consequently, our direct experience can only be one of these sensory impressions occurring in our brain. From this should follow that you cannot have a direct experience of the world around us. It also follows that you cannot be sure that our contents of experience reflect the way the external world really is. The answer to the argument of science is that there is nothing semantically wrong in saying that we directly experience things given in the external world, even if this experience requires underlying neuronal work as intermediary means. In the case of visual perception, the relevant point is that the sentence "I directly see the object" belongs to our ordinary language, while expressions like "by means of" or "show" indicate underlying intermediating neurobiological processes responsible for this direct experience, expressible in a neurobiological language with a different semantic import. As far as I am informed, it seems that what we call sensory impressions or sense data in visual case has more to do with the activation of the striated cortex, because the stimulation of this region without the activation of photoreceptors in the retina is apt to produce hallucinatory phenomena. However, the mere existence of this intermediary does not make visual perception indirect, since it is not captured by the semantic conventions ruling what we ordinarily call directly perceived external objects. Well, that's all.